Hello! If you're in the market for a small, cheap, practical people mover, you're pretty spoiled for choice these days. You've got the Mazda 3, Toyota Corolla, the other one, the Civic. That's it. But if you want something with a little bit more excitement and a little more pizzazz, interestingly, you look to the Germans, because I think that the Golf is a really good option, specifically this Golf, which is the base model, and it's the best one. And here's why. The base model Golf can be had pretty cheap and it's fairly stripped down. Thankfully, this one has the only option that matters, a third pedal. And that manual transmission is mated to this, a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder. 5 pots, all in line, hammering away, driving the front wheels. Elliot Alvis may have a Volvo with a 5-cylinder, but it does not sound as good as this. You might recognize this engine from such hits as the Audi TT RS, where it is also coupled to a turbocharger. Here, though, it's only making 170 horsepower and about 177 foot-pounds of torque, which, in a car this size, that's more than adequate, and it gets 30 miles a gallon actual. My buddy road tripped this thing up from Texas, and we just got gas, and he got like 33 on the way up here, 30 in town. What more do you want? Reliability is not that bad either. This car is from 2012, so it's like 7-8 years old, and it really hasn't needed anything other than just basic upkeep. And a new headlight, apparently. For practicality, it doesn't get much better than a hatchback, and it also doesn't get much better than a hatchback that you open with one of the coolest handles of all time. Look at that. You can store all the essentials in here, like your straw hat. Perfect. Back seats? Yeah, we got them. Pretty roomy too. I'm only like 5'5" with a 30-inch inseam. Front seat is where I would normally drive it, and there's a foot in front of my knees here. So taller people, you should be fine. Headroom, tons of it, even though the headliner is sagging on this particular car. And let's talk about these front seats for a minute, because this is a base model economy car with some of the most nicely bolstered sporty seats that I've ever been in. Like, this is a solid 3-inch of bolster here, and it just hugs me. And again, I'm a smaller guy. If you're a bigger fella, then this probably won't be as comfortable for you, but for me, this is good for twisties. It's comfortable for long distances too. It's pretty ideal, and it ratchets. I have to have it all the way up and forward because I'm absolutely tiny. And this car is pretty much completely stock. You've got an exhaust that consists of no muffler resonator, just a catback, and a Diesel Geeks shifter along with a Black Forest Industries knob and boot. And one complaint I usually have about these manual front-wheel drive Volkswagens is that the shifters feel really, really, really bad. The Diesel Geeks shifter does a really good job of making it feel quite a bit better. The forward and back throw, if I was to complain about anything, the forward and back throw is still kind of long, and the side-to-side throw is really, really, really tiny, so it does take some getting used to, but overall it's a massive improvement over what this car came with stock. So is the exhaust. It's a little droney on the highway, but this legitimately sounds as close as you're going to get to a Lamborghini V10 without spending, you know, mid 6 figures and looking like a complete douchebag. Legend actually has it that the cylinder head on this car is identical to the one on a Lamborghini V10. Now that might be nonsense, but it's feasible. Nice bit of cost saving. And then you can walk up to a Lamborghini owner with your Golf and say, hey man, I've got the same head as you. And they'll have no idea what you're talking about. Dashboard, very simple, very German. Steering wheel, no controls. Stocks, pretty good. The turn signal stock doesn't feel as nice as a BMW, but it's pretty serviceable and everything feels quality. The HVAC has the best layout, which is 3 knobs that are very easy to manipulate. It's not automatic, it's just, you know, do you want warmer or do you want colder, which is fine, I guess. This isn't a factory radio though. The Mark 6 Golf never got Android Auto or CarPlay in the US, but the Chinese market got this model for like many years more than we did. And so they did get Android Auto and CarPlay, and you can just import one of those radios, slap it right in, and it just works. And you've got Android Auto and CarPlay, which is great. Above that, you got a couple of vents, very simple, no frills, do their job, very German. Above that, you've got your obligatory cinematic Volkswagen masterpiece. Of course, we'll just leave that right there from now. Mirror, nothing fancy, dome lights, you can set them to open with the doors, what have you. Gauge cluster is pretty simple and functional. Analog gauges, and then a digital section in the middle that has all sorts of stuff that you can cycle through, apparently when the car is on. All sorts of stuff that you can cycle through on the digital cluster. You can have, of course, your speed, travel time, fuel consumption averages, your range. I actually really like the media interface on this infotainment. You know, you've got CarPlay and stuff, but when you're not using that, I mean, it's laid out decently, it looks nice. Good UI, I'm a fan. But how it looks sitting here and the features it have are only half the story. Let's get this thing out on the road and see how it drives. So a lot of people are gonna say, well, if you want a fun daily, why don't you get a Golf GTI? But really, this is a good bit of the way there. I mean, it's not as fast, it's not as precise, but it's probably a lot more reliable and way, way cheaper. And this car just has a short shifter, an exhaust, and an Eibach Pro Kit lowering springs on it, and it's pretty much perfect. There's not a lot I would change here, and there's even less I'd change when you do this. That is a symphony. Two notes come from the exhaust system and they harmonize with each other, and it is gorgeous. It is such a melodic exhaust note. And the power delivery, it's not linear, which I like. It's got kind of a push at about 4,000 RPM that just, it really makes the driving experience a bit more special. You know, you put your foot down and okay, and then at 4,000 when the exhaust note starts changing, and I'm sure what that is a change in cam profile or something to do with the cams. It's not fast. I mean, and the rev hang is pretty atrocious. I'll say that right now. The rev hang, not great. So it turns out you can actually put numbers to the sound that this makes. The notes that come out of here are a major third plus an octave, so it is actually quite melodic. And on the way here, the owner was telling me that there's specific songs where at 3,500 RPM on the highway, the car harmonizes with the song perfectly. How cool is that? And even with the exhaust missing, again, no mufflers, just a straight pipe out the back, there's not much drone going on here. Like, this is definitely tolerable. It's a heck of a lot better than my E46, I'll tell you that. While still being perfectly comfortable. The Pro Kit isn't bouncy, it's not unnecessarily jostling, you know, it's not crashing over bumps or anything. It just kind of goes along. Steering, typical, fairly heavy, not great feel, but it's adequate. This isn't going to replace your Miata, but if you have a Miata and you want something more practical to have in addition, I don't see how you could really go wrong with one of these. One thing about this being a 5-speed is the gear spread is massive. If you're not taking it up to redline, you're gonna shift and it's just gonna fall flat on its face. If you're driving sort of spiritedly but not wanting to take it up to redline, you shift it like 4,500 RPM, the next gear just has nothing. I think this car could definitely benefit from a 5-speed with closer ratios. And also just on the highway, it does not accelerate unless you downshift. You're gonna have to downshift if you want any sort of forward momentum to pass somebody, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's a manual. You wanna shift it? Go for it. More chances to shift it. I love it. I'm not in love with this pedal box. It's not laid out all that great for heel toe downshifting. The brake pedal seems like it sticks back a little bit too much for you to hit the gas pedal enough to make the jump for those huge rev spreads between gears, but it is, again, an economy car first, and it's an enthusiast car because I say so. And I think the best thing about this is the speed of this car strikes a very good, oh, that was fifth. This car is just the perfect speed for a daily because I can make that great noise and not exceed the speed limit. Like, there's a Toyota Sienna in front of me. I can just drop drop a couple gears and listen to it without, you know, I'm not being crazy there. You know, I just dropped to second and floored it for 5 seconds, and I was slowly creeping up on this Sienna, but it doesn't feel slow. That little punch at 4,000 RPM really goes a long ways towards making this not feel like an absolute bore fest in a straight line. And really, not a bore fest is just kind of what you want out of a car like this. It's really perfectly suited to what it is. And a lot of people who know me know that I'm not a huge fan of the GTI. I think it's just a little bit too boring. It's a little too competent at everything it does. Sometimes the failures of a car are what make it more interesting. And this car is competent. It is a little bit boring, but it's so cheap that what it does give you just makes it such a great value. This car, now admitted this is pre-pandemic pricing, but this car with just under 100,000 miles was under $5,000. That's insane value there. And admittedly, that was, you know, one friend to another, so you're not likely to see those sorts of deals often. But the 2.5 does kind of seem to be unloved by the general public. You know, not many people really looking for a base model Volkswagen. So the deals are out there, and the deals will be out there, hopefully, when car prices go back into the realm of reasonable. That rev hang. Yeah, it's best if you just kind of bang it through the gears instead of just waiting for it to come down, because then you'll be waiting forever, and that's lame. This is the difference between me and the owner's seating positions. There we go. So that's pretty much it for a look at my buddy's pretty neat Mark 6 Volkswagen Golf. Really, if a decently reliable, modern, kind of fun daily that sounds amazing is what you're after, this really does fit the bill. I gotta say that I'd recommend it. And speaking of that sound, I'm gonna go listen to it just a little bit more. Thanks for watching.